conversation, I think the next thing that I want to talk to you about, Matt, was potential lineups. And I know there's, like we're just talking about right now, there's so many questions to be answered. But let's live in a world where we know. Just give me whatever situation, that you like best. And once you give me a couple of potential lineups that you want to say that you want to see on the floor next season for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, I kind of suck at this because I said last year going into this year that I said my favorite lineup would have been DeJounte Murray at the 1, Derek White at the 2, DeMar at the 3, DeMarre Carroll at the 4, and LaMarcus at the 5, which was
you
very
weren't alone.
I could not have been more wrong than that. So, in a perfect world where I'd say, where my preference would be we keep LaMarcus and trade DeMar, I would finally go with the DeJounte Derek front court. I think we saw a lot of improvement from DeJounte's jumper. I mean, he was top 10 in mid-range shooting efficiency. He was top 10 in the whole NBA. There was like a minimum of 100 attempts, and he was just automatic from that mid-range spot towards the end of the season. And I think, people are going to, some people are going to complain about spacing. I don't see that. I think Derek's a pretty darn good shooter. He's been able to score at all three levels, 3-point mid-range and get to the rim. And again, like that defensive versatility, like I think people are going to criticize that a little bit because we've seen it in small doses and they haven't been successful. But I just think, it's small doses. Like you need a larger sample size to actually make an assessment out of that. And so let's say DeJounte and Derek at the 1 and 2, and then off the bench, I still like Patty Mills. He had a unbelievable season, really. Yeah. I mean, just shooting crazy well from three-pointer. I hope he stays because he's still, he's the epitome of Spurs culture, and he's the only guy from that 2014 team left besides Marco, and I hope he's the Spurs for life. So
yeah, me too.
But I also want to see his minutes reduced too. I want to see, more Lonnie. I want to see more Keldon. And so that's the first two. And if DeMar's gone, then I go with Wonder Lonnie or Keldon, and honestly, I don't know which one. Because I really like what Keldon brings to the table. I think we only saw a little bit, but he has the ability to shoot 3-ball. Yeah. I think Lonnie had an interesting season because after that Rockets game, we all thought he was just going to be like this permanent, 20, 25 minutes per game type of guy, and we didn't see that. Yeah. And he had his struggles. He struggled sometimes with his decision making with the ball, which is, natural for a 20-year-old in the NBA. But yeah, I'd like to see one or Lonnie or Keldon. And another guy that we haven't talked about much that's really interesting is Trey Lyles. Yeah. I wasn't really a huge Trey Lyles guy when we got him. I mean, he was kind of our rebound girl, after Marcus Morris backed out. Yeah. But he's really come along nicely. Obviously, he earned Greg Popovich's trust from the start, earning that starting spot. He's been a great rebounder, and his three-point shot has come along really nice. If he can continue to shoot that 3-ball at, a 40% clip, I don't see why we can't extend him. I mean, he's not really going to get a huge offer from a lot of teams. So I think his best bet would be to, stay with the Spurs. I don't know. Do we have him signed through next year?
Who's this?
Trey Lyles.
Trey Lyles, yeah. We got him locked in until 2 more seasons, I think, for him.
So I think next year, I think next year would be a big year for him to, continue to shoot the way he has in, the recent months. I think I would keep him at the 4, and I would have LaMarcus at the 5. Now, you're talking about rotations. You obviously bring in Lonnie or Keldon, exchanges for one or the other. You bring Patty Mills in for the point guard, DeJounte or Derek, whoever's kind of playing well. Another guy we haven't touched on is Rudy Gay and what they're going to do with him. Yeah. Now, I think he's signed through at least next season, but he's a guy that could potentially, trade to go, trade down or trade up if you combine him with a draft pick or another guy. If they keep him, I guess I keep him at the 4 just because we just don't have a lot of depth at that position. But like we said, I hope they draft somebody at that 3-4 position that can step in right away, kind of the Trey Lyles backup because, I love me some Rudy Gay, but he's one of those guys that we talked about that just has regressed a lot this year.
Yeah, huge regression. Yeah. So let me ask you, if we draft someone at the small forward, power forward position, do they get the jump over Luka, or do they get the year in Austin?
I think I think that's where competition becomes a little healthy, and you kind of just see, who's ready. you want to probably give, at least the Spurs are always going to give the benefit of the doubt to the the older guy, no matter if it's a year older or 10 years older.
Mm-hmm.
So you like to think that Luka gets that nod. I forgot to mention him in the lineup rotation. He could be in the 4 spot if he's ready. But if they draft a guy at that 3-4 spot and he's ready right away, I'd give him the nod. But that's just not what the Spurs do. As frustrating as it can be sometimes, but we'll see who they pick up in the draft, and we'll see how ready or not he is.
Yeah, I think that's the same situation with Bryn Forbes this season. It was like, okay, Bryn Forbes is the older player. He's put in the work. This is his time. It's a contract year. He needs to ball out so he can get another contract. I feel like the Spurs were kind of doing him a solid, showing him a little bit of Spurs loyalty and just good business. Saying, okay, Bryn worked his tail off, undrafted 2 or 3 seasons in the league, earned his spot last year by default, right, with injuries and whatnot. But then we did get to the playoffs, and then he did show up in the playoffs. So that earns a mountain of trust on your coaching staff. So I feel like, they're like, okay, let's give him some run. Let's give him his opportunity, which was this season, even though I feel like Keldon Johnson, going back to your point, Keldon Johnson might have been more ready, just to me, I think he was. I mean, I saw him defend. I went to the summer league last year, got to see these guys play a few times, and it was just, Keldon Johnson's not scared. He's ready. He's physically strong enough to compete. He has the motor, all these things, and you just kind of saw it. And you don't have to be a basketball savant to see that Keldon Johnson was ready to defend on this level. Play, no, not so much. It was kind of the opposite with Lonnie Walker the year before. He was able, I think he was NBA ready offensively coming out of Miami, but defensively he was nowhere, even close to seeing any type of minutes for the Spurs. But I feel like that could happen next year with Luka too. If we draft a guy if we can get a top 10 player, not saying we're gonna trade up or anything, but let's say it just falls into our lap and it's in that power forward position, I think Luka and that player will have, like you said, some healthy competition, and that's a good problem to have for the Spurs. I like your lineups, man. I was on the boat last year. DeJounte and Derek White, man, best defensive backcourt in the NBA. There should be no one even close. Spurs love defense. They put defense first. I was wrong. They didn't put that lineup first over, Bryn Forbes spacing, whatever. But I think that's something that we have to do. And you know what? Patty Mills should be able to take that backup point guard role a little bit from Derek, and that's when you have a player like Quindary Weatherspoon who could jump in and take a little bit of that backup point guard role. I think he's ready as well. But the Lonnie Walker at the 3 or Keldon Johnson dilemma that you have, that's a good problem to have too. And I think that's when we do that little seniority nod to Lonnie Walker, let him get his run, KJ off the bench, and Trey Lyles at the 4. I agree with you. I was shocked. I've never seen it. I don't think any of us have really seen it happen, where we pick up a free agent who's been in the league 3 or 4 years and they just start a whole season for the Spurs. Like, you have to be an incredibly smart, high-level IQ player and a damn well good defender to be able to do that,
And he's a solid defender. I watch him on defense, and when his guys switch out in the perimeter, I mean, it's not ideal to have him on the perimeter guarding a point guard on a switch, but he holds his own. And another guy that I forgot to mention was Chimezie Metu. I think Chimezie Metu is another guy that could have been a part of this team, especially when LaMarcus and Jakob were hurt. I was just flabbergasted why we didn't bring him up. I mean, I was getting so sick of seeing his stat line in Austin, 27 and 17, 25. I'm like, why? It made no sense. I mean, I'm not a Drew Eubanks hater. I think Chimezie is kind of more shaped or geared to be a center in today's era. I mean, a lot of people compare him to Clint Capella for good reason. I mean, he's got the athleticism. I think he'd be a great guy to throw lobs on pick and rolls and then the fast break. I think he defends well and guards the rim pretty well. I'm just sick of seeing all of our G League guys with 25 plus point, 10 rebounds, 6 assist outings every night. It's just Like, dude, I'm not saying, like, obviously they're not just going to go to the Spurs and transfer those stats number for number, but
Yeah.
I see these guys dominating night in and night out. It's like, give them a chance, man. Like, what else do you need to see from them?
Yeah, and it's give them a chance, but don't just give them 3 minutes and then never play them again. Give them 3 games of 7 minutes per game. Give them some consistent run, get a good sample size. Man, it's so right, man. And that's where I kind of come in back to, like, do we really need, both LaMarcus and DeMar? Just so much young talent. I mean, Chimezi, to me, he's a poor man's LaMarcus Aldridge. Drew Eubanks is a poor man's Jakob Poeltl, right? So we have like little mini-me's of our 2 better players in the G League developing, and Chimezi's shown that he can score at all 3 levels too, man. I mean, he can crash the rim. He's got a great mid-range shot, and he started shooting more threes this season. And I read somewhere, I don't remember where it was, but the reason why that they elected to bring up Drew over Chimezi is because of consistency. Something about, Chimezi doesn't consistently do the things that he does well, where, Drew does a lot less. He's not a guy that's going to shoot the ball 20, or 10 times a game. But man, I love Drew, man. I've seen Drew play a few times now in person. That guy's a monster, dude. Oh my goodness, he's a monster. If you look at a couple of dunks or whatever that he had this year. Anyways, I know I'm going off on a tangent about those 2 guys, but I like, and it's just another great problem to have, except we don't give them minutes. We give all the minutes to the older guys when we have all these young guys. But back to your lineup of Trey Lyles at the 4, and going back to Trey Lyles. I love Trey, and it's the same. To be honest, it's the same conversation with Trey Lyles. It's consistency. He showed us that we can be very good when Trey Lyles does a lot for us. When he's crashing the offensive rebounds, when he's hitting open shots, when he's just doing a lot of the little things, which I feel is the perfect role for him. I feel like he's that low key. I don't want a lot of attention. I don't have a crazy motor to do a lot for a long period of time. I just want to help everyone else be better on the floor, and very much kind of like Boris Diaw, except Boris Diaw did it every game. Every game he was able to impact it and help us win, where Trey Lyles has games where he's 4 points, 2 rebounds, in 18 minutes. I'm just like, dude, what? We got a lot of those. But we also had the games where he led us in scoring, he led us in rebounding, he was getting double doubles every other night, so he has shown us that. And I think that with Trey, I love him playing next to LaMarcus, but I also love Jakob playing next to LaMarcus. And I know that's kind of I know that's kind of old school Spurs basketball, big style basketball, but not really. You would have to ask LaMarcus to step out a little bit more. LaMarcus they defend well together. When LaMarcus and Jakob and Derek White, those 3 players are on the floor, it's very hard to get to the rim if you're the other team. So to me, I want to keep those 2 guys in that 4 spot and just kind of switch, have it situational, on a game-to-game basis. Or obviously Jakob would be the 5 and LaMarcus would step into the 4. But a lot of possibilities next year, and we haven't even talked about Luka playing the 4, playing the 5, because he's a modern NBA big. And then so I don't know, there's just a lot of possibilities. So we'll leave it there. We'll continue that one on another day. But lastly, Matt, before we go, we're going to talk about free agents, right? The Spurs have 3 that are very interesting. We've talked about them already: Marco Bellinelli, Bryn Forbes, and Jakob Poeltl. So when we get back from this little break, let's talk about what we should do with those 3 players going into next season.
All right, we're going to take this quick break so I can let you guys know where all the music from any of the content that I do comes from, and it comes from the one and only at Eric Gloom on Twitter, EricGloom. That's Eric Trejo at Eric Gloom on Twitter. Follow him.